Imagine stepping into your backyard tomorrow morning. The grass is still covered in dew. The sun is just beginning to rise. And before you've even had your first cup of coffee, you're collecting fresh eggs that were laid only hours ago. Now imagine that same backyard producing food for your family, improving your soil, reducing grocery bills, and giving you a reason to look forward to every morning. Most people assume that kind of lifestyle requires a large farm, acres of land, expensive equipment, years of farming experience. But what if I told you that somewhere in America right now, homeowners and retirees are doing exactly that with a piece of land that's smaller than most people imagine? Just one backyard and a flock of chickens. Today, we're going to explore what 100 chickens can really do with a small piece of land. Not the social media fantasy version. Not the get-rich-quick version. The real version. We'll look at the space you'll need, what daily life actually looks like, the benefits most people never think about, and why so many homeowners are discovering that one of the most valuable assets they own is sitting right outside their back door. And by the end of this video, you may never look at a backyard the same way again. Take a moment and think about your backyard. For many people, it's simply a patch of grass. Something that needs mowing every week. Something that needs watering during dry months. Something that costs money to maintain, but produces absolutely nothing in return. Year after year, thousands of square feet of valuable land sit unused. Now imagine if that same piece of land worked for you instead. Imagine walking outside and seeing chickens scratching through the soil, searching for insects, turning feed into fresh eggs, adding nutrients back into the ground, creating life and activity where there was once only empty space. That's one reason chickens have remained popular for thousands of years. They don't simply occupy land. They help make it productive. They reduce insect populations. They create fertilizer. They provide food. And they do all of this while requiring far less space than most people think. For homeowners, chickens offer something unusual. They transform a backyard from a decorative space into a productive one. Suddenly, your land isn't just something you maintain. It's something that gives back. Every single day. If you've ever thought about raising animals, you've probably considered the obvious options. Cattle, goats, sheep, maybe even pigs. But for most homeowners, those animals come with one major problem: space. A cow needs a lot of room. Goats require secure fencing and constant management. Pigs can quickly tear up large areas of land. Chickens are different. They are one of the most beginner-friendly farm animals on Earth. They don't require huge pastures. They don't need expensive barns. And unlike many livestock species, they begin producing value almost immediately. While larger animals may take months or even years before producing meaningful returns, laying hens can provide eggs consistently throughout the year. That's one reason chickens are often called the gateway animal to farming. They allow ordinary people to experience food production without needing a full-scale farm. And perhaps most importantly, they fit naturally into everyday life. You don't need to change your entire lifestyle to keep chickens. You simply make them part of it. When people hear the number 100, they often picture a large commercial farm. Huge buildings, industrial equipment, thousands of birds. But 100 chickens is far more manageable than most people realize. Let's put things into perspective. A third of an acre is roughly 14,500 square feet. That's about the size of many suburban properties across the United States. And with proper management, 100 chickens can comfortably live within that space. The secret isn't having more land. It's using your land wisely. Successful chicken keepers often divide their property into separate sections. One area is being used by the flock. Another is resting and recovering. After a period of time, the birds are moved to a different section. This simple practice helps protect the grass, improves soil quality, and reduces health problems. Think of it like rotating crops in a garden. Instead of exhausting one area, you're giving nature time to recover. As a result, the land stays healthier and more productive. Many first-time chicken owners are surprised by how efficient chickens can be when they're managed properly. The challenge usually isn't the amount of space available. The challenge is learning how to use that space effectively. Fortunately, that's a skill anyone can learn. Ask experienced chicken keepers what got them hooked, and you'll often hear the same answer. It wasn't money. It wasn't business. And it wasn't farming. It was a moment. For some people, that moment was collecting their very first egg. For others, it was seeing tiny chicks grow into healthy birds. And for many retirees, it was realizing they finally had something meaningful to build and care for every day. There is something incredibly satisfying about producing food yourself. In today's world, most people are disconnected from where their food comes from. Eggs appear on store shelves. Chicken arrives packaged and prepared. Everything feels distant. But chickens reconnect people with that process. Suddenly food isn't just something you buy. It's something you help create. One homeowner described collecting his first dozen eggs as more rewarding than mowing his lawn for the previous 10 years combined. Not because of the value of the eggs, but because the land was finally producing something useful, something real, something tangible. And that's when many people begin seeing their backyard differently. Not as decoration, not as wasted space, but as opportunity. And once that shift happens, everything changes. One of the biggest misconceptions about keeping chickens is that they require constant attention. People imagine spending hours every day cleaning, feeding, and chasing birds around the yard. The reality is usually much simpler. Once you have a good system in place, caring for 100 chickens can become part of a comfortable daily routine. Most mornings begin with a quick visit to the coop. You check the water. Make sure the feeders are topped up. Open access to the outdoor run if your birds aren't already free-ranging. And before long, you'll probably find yourself collecting eggs. For many chicken keepers, these morning tasks take less time than people spend scrolling through their phones before breakfast. In the evening, the routine is even simpler. A quick check to make sure the birds are healthy. Another egg collection. And making sure everything is secure for the night. Of course, there are larger jobs from time to time. Cleaning the coop. Adding fresh bedding. Repairing a fence. But these aren't everyday tasks. The truth is that chickens thrive on consistency. Once their basic needs are met, they settle into a routine. And so do you. For many retirees, that's one of the biggest rewards. The work is meaningful without being overwhelming. The routine provides purpose without creating stress. And every day brings a small sense of accomplishment. Now let's talk about something that surprises almost everyone. Just how much food can 100 chickens produce? The answer depends on the breed and the way they're managed. But even conservative estimates can be impressive. A productive laying hen can produce hundreds of eggs each year. Not every bird lays every day. Some are younger. Some are older. Some naturally produce more than others. But a healthy flock can still generate an astonishing amount of food over time. Imagine walking into your backyard and collecting dozens of eggs before breakfast. Not once. Not occasionally. But day after day. Week after week. Month after month. For many families, that means producing far more eggs than they could ever use themselves. Friends begin asking for eggs. Neighbors ask where they can get some. Family members suddenly become very interested in visiting. It's a funny thing that many chicken keepers discover. Fresh eggs have a way of creating demand all on their own. People appreciate food that's local. Food they can trust. Food that came from birds they can actually see. And while eggs may be the most obvious product, they're not the only benefit. The chickens themselves contribute to a larger system. Their manure becomes valuable compost. That compost improves gardens. Healthier gardens produce more vegetables. Vegetable scraps can sometimes go back to the chickens. Over time, everything begins working together. What started as a flock becomes a productive backyard ecosystem. And that's where many people realize they're building something much bigger than a chicken coop. They're building a system that keeps producing value year after year. A few years ago, a retired teacher found herself in a situation that many people understand. She had more free time than ever before, a decent-sized property, and a growing feeling that her land could be doing more. She didn't have farming experience. She wasn't trying to start a large business. She simply wanted a project that felt meaningful. So she started small. A few chickens, a simple coop, a willingness to learn. Over time, those few chickens became a flock. The flock became part of her daily routine. And before long, neighbors were asking for eggs. Local customers began showing interest. Most importantly, she discovered something she hadn't expected. A sense of purpose. Every morning brought a reason to step outside. Every season brought new lessons. Every year brought new improvements. Her story isn't unusual. In fact, it's remarkably common. Across the country, homeowners and retirees are discovering that productive land doesn't have to be measured in acres. Sometimes it can be measured in square feet. Sometimes it starts with a simple backyard. And sometimes it starts with a flock of chickens. When people fail with chickens, it's usually not because they lack land. It's usually not because they lack money. And it's almost never because they're too old to learn. The biggest mistake beginners make is believing they need everything to be perfect before they start. They spend months researching, months planning, months worrying. The perfect coop, the perfect breed, the perfect layout, the perfect strategy. Meanwhile, experienced chicken keepers understand something important. Progress matters more than perfection. Every successful flock started somewhere. Every experienced chicken farmer was once a beginner. Every beautiful setup you see today probably started with a simple coop and a handful of birds. The goal isn't knowing everything before you begin. The goal is learning as you go. The chickens themselves will teach you a lot. You'll learn what works. You'll learn what doesn't. You'll improve your systems. You'll become more efficient. And before long, you'll know far more than you ever imagined possible. That's how almost every successful chicken keeper begins. Not with expertise, but with action. Before you leave this video, I want you to think about something. Think about your backyard. The space behind your house that you've walked past hundreds, maybe thousands of times. For years, it may have been nothing more than grass. Something to mow. Something to maintain. Something that quietly consumed your time and money. But what if it could do more? What if that same piece of land could provide fresh eggs every morning? What if it could help feed your family? What if it could improve your garden? What if it could give you a reason to step outside every day and build something meaningful with your own hands? That's why so many people are turning to chickens. Not because chickens are magic. Not because farming is easy. But because they prove something important. You don't need a giant farm to create something valuable. You don't need hundreds of acres. You don't need decades of experience. Sometimes all you need is a backyard, a simple plan, and the willingness to begin. And if you're wondering which chicken breeds are best for homeowners, retirees, and small backyards, that's exactly what we're covering in our next video. We'll compare the most popular breeds, their egg production, their personalities, and which ones make the most sense for your goals. So make sure you're subscribed. And before you go, tell me in the comments how much space you're working with. You might be surprised by what's possible. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.